I hope you hear me correctly. I am really so sad that I cannot be there among all those friends. I hope there will be another occasion to meet, but at least Skype seems so informal that it's like if I was there. And I will talk about the numismatic materials from the excavation in Sybaris region. This is a topic on which I've been working for many years, starting in the early 90s. And besides participation to Sybaris excavations until 2016, my last achievements there were a book on the numismatic materials preserved in Sybaris Museum and the planning of coins exhibit in the same museum. Since then, something has changed due to reform of the structures of the Italian Ministry of Culture. And then it has become more difficult to interact with the authorities dealing with preservation and research in Calabria. Now, practically the superintendent for cultural heritage has been dismantled and the funds have been reduced because research is no more a target for the ministry, who is interested only in the revenues from major archaeological sites such as Pompeii, and chances for improving studies and enhancing of coin finds are really scarce in the last year. So I will speak about the past, even though it's a recent past, and the procedures that were, in my opinion, the best way of treating coin finds, as well, of course, as other categories of archaeological materials. The National Archaeological Museum of Sybaris, this is slide 2, is intended to host the materials coming from archaeological excavations of the region. This is a site museum, and being strictly related to archaeological activities, it was equipped with restoration laboratories, a fact that allowed us to treat the materials in order to avoid their deterioration and to have them ready for museums' showcases. Before the 90s, second half of the 90s, the way in which archaeological finds were recorded was a very traditional one, having handwritten recordings, sometimes photographs, sometimes not. And so this has been a serious problem while dealing with coins coming from old excavations. Anyway, after many years of researches, it seemed a good idea to gather the materials together, to have both a record on coin collection of the museum and a view of, about circulation in Sybaris region. And you can see in slide 3 the distribution of the coin finds that have been examined. They come from different contexts: hoards, burials, excavations, and sporadic finds. All, however, from archaeological contexts in the city of Sybaris and in its territory, and distributed along a long period from the 6th century BC to the 6th century AD. The most ancient context is a coin hoard found at San Nicola di Amendolara. This is slide 4, a site that has been excavated in the 70s by Juliette de la Genière, and that has been identified as a settlement of local population whose necropolis dates back to the end of the 9th century BC and whose life continues up to the end of the late Archaic period. The hoard contained 42 silver-infused coins, staters and drachms from the mints of Sybaris, Metapontum, and a unique coin of Croton. All the coins pertain to the period of the large flood infuses, and the burial of the hoard can be placed then before the end of Sybaris in 510. Talking about hoards, next comes the deposits that have been found during the works for the building of a new prison in Rossano. You know, in Calabria they need a lot of prisons normally. And this is slide 5. But this kind hoard came out from excavations of a Roman villa rustica that was built on the remains of a Hellenistic farm. The hoard contains 96 Roman Republican denarii, the oldest belonging to one of the anonymous series dated slightly after 211 BC, according to Crawford classification. The latest specimen is dated 242 BC, and according to Appian's report in Bellum Civile, between 42 and 40 BC, the region underwent serious troubles because of the expedition of Caesar on the coast of Bruttium, because of Pompey's siege of Turi and Consentia, and because of Pompey's cavalry raids in the area. Now, the middle of the 1st century BC is also the date of the latest ceramic finds in the villa that has probably been abandoned around these periods. The coins, as you can see from a few examples in slide 6, are a sort of collection of the most interesting types of Republican denarii, with the rhythm of thesaurization increasing from the beginning of the 1st century and reaching its peak in the last 7 years before the burial. Another small hoard has been discovered in Sybaris territory and again in a farm at Monte Giordano. This is slide 7. Unfortunately, the excavations are not fully published. Only a preliminary presentation describes the shape of the building and mentions graffiti in Austin of a Novius Opsius. Then we have mentions of black glazed ceramics and the number of bloom weights. And all the materials suggest an occupation of the farm between the 4th and the beginnings of the 3rd century BC, when the structure was suddenly abandoned. The hoard is a mixed deposit containing both silver and bronze coins, dating from the end of the 5th to the first half of the 3rd century, minted in Heraclea, Croton, and Metapontum. The silver coin bearing the helmeted head of Athena on the obverse and 3 tau joined at their bases has no parallels in southern Italy or in Greece, but the head suggests an attribution to Turi, while the reverse can be compared to that of the 3 tetartemoria of Alice, an interpretation that could be confirmed by the appropriate weight. This should be the coin on the right of your slide, if I remember correctly in PowerPoint. Now we come to the information about the relationships between Sybaris and its territory that can be inferred from coin circulation in a couple of sites interpreted as fortified Bretian settlements. That means Torre del Mordillo and Castiglione di Paludi. Torre del Mordillo, slide 8, has a very significant proto-historic phase, and the 4th and 3rd century occupation by the Bretian coin is witnessed, among other things, by a high number of coin finds. The main feature of coin circulation is the massive presence of coins of the Bretons, of course, but many other mints operating in the region are represented, like Tarentum, Metapontum, and Trotum. Most of the coins are issued in nearby Turi. This is slide 9. Now, this data could refer to a normal pattern of regional circulation, but the coins of Syracuse, of Carthaginians, and of Rome point out at a wider circulation context that seems to be connected with the frame of the Hannibalic War. It seems significant that Roman coins cover the period from the Liberal series through the quadrigates and the denarius system, as you can see in slide 10. And numismatic data suggests the abandonment of the site at the end of the 3rd century. A slightly different frame is depicted when examining coin finds from Castiglione di Paludi, another Breccian fortified settlement, in slide 11. The starting point seems to be the same: South Italian mints, comprising those of Campania of the 3rd century BC, are well attested in the finds. You can see some samples in slide 12. Then there is a very high quantity of coins of the Brecci, representing more than 40% of the total number of coins recovered during excavations. The bulk of Breccian coins belongs to the central years of the Second Punic War, while coins of the earlier and later series are less numerous. Syracuse, mainly through the use of Agathocles and Neron II, is one of the mints that restituted the bigger number of specimens, the other means being predominant among Castiglione di Paludi's coin finds is that of Turi, slide 13. And this fact is the starting point for discussing the final moments of the site, tied to Rome's victory over the Carthaginians, the new arrangement of Turi's territory, and the foundation of the Latin colony of Copia, slide 14. Archaeological data showed the occupation of Castiglione di Paludi in the 4th and 3rd century BC. A wide city wall encloses a huge settlement, investigated only in a few areas, comprising a theater and a habitation quarter with some very big and rich private buildings. Ceramics are dated according to Jean-Paul Morel's classification within the 3rd century BC. And then there is one context that led the archaeologists to place the abandonment of the site at the end of the Second Punic War. A pit had been obliterated, and some ceramics have been left in a kiln, suggesting that the abandonment must have been sudden and dramatic. But coin finds oppose to this reconstruction, as not only issues of copia have been found at Castiglione di Paludi, but these finds represent an increase of the corpus of copia specimens known before Castiglione excavations of about 50%. So they cannot be interpreted as casual losses occurred after the city's abandonment, for they have been brought to light in all excavated areas associated with Roman issues of the end of the 3rd century BC, including early denarii, but as well with the Breccian coins struck in the same period. It has been supposed then that coins struck in the name of the Latin colony of Copia, founded in 194 BC, preceded the date of the colony. There seemed, however, to be another solution that takes into account the fact that probably the issue of coins in the name of a new city must be considered as one of the first acts of the colonists, particularly when the name of the new city evocates a wish for strength or prosperity, as in the cases of Valencia and Copia, and the fact that ceramic chronology depends on the dating of closed archaeological contexts. In the case of Castiglione di Paludi, the end of the Hannibalic War has been considered a terminus that could not be discussed. Archaeological researchers at Sybaris prove that the Latin city sets up on one part of the ancient site of Turi, and probably during the first phase of settlement, the Greek city's territory has been used by the Roman to rearrange the region's occupation models. So probably Castiglione di Paludi was not abandoned totally and suddenly at the end of the Hannibalic War, but it remains as site for the reorganization of the territory for, say, like one generation, 20, 30 years, more or less. And to end, we come to Sybaris in slide 15. and to the coins coming from the excavations of the city. It is probably well known that after a period when intensive research have been carried out the archaeological sites between 1969 and 1975, excavations have concentrated on small portions of the town. By the way, in some of the images you can see what happens if there is a blackout of the pump system keeping archaeological layers dry. I mean, when you see the storks in some small plaque d'eau, it's because the pumps don't work and the site is completely submerged by the water. Compared to the extension of the city's plan that you can see in slide 16 as it has been reconstructed, the excavated area is very small and archaic classical levels have been reached only in a few occasions. Silver coins of Sybaris mint, recorded in the excavation reports of the 70s, have been found in small quantity in archaic levels in the area of the Stombi, a quarter that has been abandoned and not included in a tourist plan, and in the sanctuary of Francavilla Marittima, identified as an Athenian thanks to the bronze dedication of Cleombrotos. You can see the site and the inscription in slide 17. The archaeological context of the coins is not well known, but it has been argued that most of the materials, by the way, some of them recovered in Malibu's Getty Museum, were coming from one of the votive deposits. You can see some materials in slide 80. So, as this can easily be expected, only one silver stater of Turi witnesses the coin presences from the 5th century BC. You can see in slide 9. And many bronze coins ranging from the 4th to the end of the 3rd century BC, for the most part of block mint, with a few specimens issued by Metapontum, Tarentum, Terina, Croton, Syracuse, and the Bretons, represent the usual model of regional circulation in the late classical and Hellenistic period. The coming of Rome, slide 20, in the course of the 3rd century BC, is represented by a relatively high number of republican coins, including denarii belonging to the early issues of the last decade of the century. Roman silver and bronze coins circulated alongside with the ones struck in the name of Utopia. It is then obvious that Roman imperial issues, slide 21, from Augustus to the 3rd century AD, represent the bulk of coin finds. You can see also in slide 22. A number of small hoards, one of them of gold and silver of Julio-Claudian and Flavian emperors, another of bronze coins of the Antonines, finally a couple of deposits dating to the 4th and beginning of the 5th century, you can see an example in slide 23, has been recovered during excavations of the 70s. This last coin hoard that you see in slide actually was found while making maintenance of the pump system of the archaeological site more recently. The relatively high quantity of precious metal coins must be due to the fact that Sybaris' geological features make its situation unlike that of Pompeii. I mean, it must have been difficult to attend the site for spoliation of plundering after its abandonment. And the period of its abandonment can be again inferred by coin circulation. After the late Roman issues, see slide 24, there is only one follis of Justinian I, suggesting that the site was abandoned in the course of the 6th century AD. There are no later traces of coin circulation after Justinian I, and there has been discussion with the medieval archaeologists that work in Sybaris, because making their chronologies, basing their chronologies on the ceramics, mostly on the ubiquitous amphoras of late Roman I type that have chronological span between the 4th and the 7th century. Normally they say, no, Sybaris was abandoned in the 6th or the 7th century, as most of the late Roman Proto-Byzantine sites of the region. But actually there is no trace of anything that suggests coin circulation after the middle of the reign of Justinian in the middle of the 6th century, and I hardly believe that the scarcity of post-Roman coins can be due only to a contraction of the monetary economy in southern Italy. It must be really a turning point in the life of the site, and probably its inhabitants found it impossible to maintain the site when in poorer conditions in respect of the past centuries. They couldn't afford the maintenance of the channels, the river, and so the site was finally abandoned, and there are no traces of later Byzantine frequentation. So this is what I had to say about in which way we can use coins coming from a museum collection, but that reflects different models of circulation, different occasions for studying the way in which ancient coins circulated in an ancient region of Italy. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for your patience.